The chilling case of the Zodiac Killer, a murderer who vanished into thin air. Few serial killers in history have left behind a legacy as chilling, enigmatic, and haunting as the Zodiac Killer. A murderer who taunted the police, played mind games with the media, and left a trail of blood across California. He was never caught, never unmasked. Even decades later, the name Zodiac still sends shivers down the spines of those who dare to uncover the truth. His ciphers remain partially unsolved. His identity, a mystery. His motives, a terrifying puzzle. This is not just a story about a serial killer. It's a story about fear, obsession, and the mind of a ghost that still lingers in the shadows of time. The unfolding moments will leave you speechless. And before we go further, remember to subscribe, like, and comment to support more gripping investigations. It started with a quiet drive on a moonlit road. July 4th, 1969, Vallejo, California. A young couple, Darlene Farron and Michael Mageau, parked at Blue Rock Springs, a known lover's lane. The night was peaceful, until the headlights of an approaching car cut through the darkness. A man stepped out. No words, just a sudden explosion of gunfire. Michael collapsed, wounded but alive. Darlene, less fortunate, lay still, bleeding out in the front seat. The attacker walked away, but not before ensuring their suffering was complete. Then he vanished. Minutes later, a chilling call came into the Vallejo Police Department. "I just killed 2 kids. I also killed those people last year. Goodbye." The line went dead. The caller's voice was calm, almost amused. And so began the reign of the Zodiac Killer. The nightmare didn't start with this attack. It had been brewing in the shadows. Unbeknownst to authorities, this wasn't the first time the Zodiac had struck. A year earlier, another young couple, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday, had been gunned down on a lonely stretch of road. The cases were eerily similar, but it wasn't until the Blue Rock Springs attack that the true horror of what was unfolding became clear. The killer wasn't just a murderer. He was a phantom, a ghost playing a sick game with the police, the media, and the terrified residents of California. His chilling phone call was just the beginning of what would become one of the most notorious killing sprees in history. As investigators scrambled to piece together what had happened, an unsettling realization began to dawn. This was no ordinary criminal. This was someone who craved attention, someone who wanted to be feared. And worst of all, he wasn't finished. Could they stop him before he struck again? Or were they already too late? What would you have done if you had been in the shoes of law enforcement at the time? Could they have acted differently to change history? The Zodiac wasn't just a murderer. He was a psychological tormentor. A predator who took pleasure in playing games with his victims, the police, and the public. He didn't just want to kill. He wanted control, dominance, and most of all, fear. A month after the attack at Blue Rock Springs, 3 major newspapers, the San Francisco Chronicle, San Francisco Examiner, and Vallejo Times-Herald, received identical letters. They weren't ordinary letters. They were cryptic messages filled with sinister bragging and an eerie challenge. Each contained a different section of a cryptogram. A complex puzzle Zodiac dared the public to solve. "I like killing people because it is so much fun," one message read. "It is more fun than hunting wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all." What kind of person could write something like this? Did he see himself as a hunter? Or was this simply another way to spread fear? Panic swept across California. This was no ordinary killer. This was a man who wanted attention, someone who sought a psychological battle, taunting law enforcement at every turn. Police scrambled to make sense of the cryptic messages. Codebreakers, both amateur and professional, raced against time to crack the ciphers, hoping they might reveal the identity of the man behind the madness. Days later, a schoolteacher and his wife in Salinas, California, cracked one of the ciphers, revealing Zodiac's eerie philosophy on murder. But while the world was horrified by his words, the biggest mystery remained. Who was he? What drove him to commit such horrific acts? And why did he crave recognition for them? The Zodiac wasn't satisfied with simply leaving behind bodies. He wanted more. He needed the world to know he was in control. More letters followed, filled with chilling threats and grotesque boasts. He claimed responsibility for multiple murders. He provided unsettling details that only the killer would know. He even threatened to bomb a school bus full of children, a declaration that sent waves of fear through parents across the state. As his letters continued, Zodiac seemed to delight in the uncertainty he created. He played a game of cat and mouse with detectives, enjoying the way they chased him but never got close enough. He was always just beyond their grasp, always one step ahead, slipping back into the shadows before they could close in. Would anyone ever be able to catch him? Or was he destined to remain a ghost in the night? And then, just when the terror reached its peak, he struck again. What would you have done if you had received one of those letters? Would you have tried to solve the cipher yourself? Lake Berryessa, September 27th, 1969. Another couple, another horror. Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were enjoying a lazy afternoon near the water when a figure emerged from the trees. He wore a black executioner's hood, a symbol crudely stitched onto the front of his chest, a white cross circle. The Zodiac. His voice was steady, controlled. He claimed to be an escaped convict. He needed money and a car, but this was a lie, a cruel, terrifying lie. Without hesitation, he bound them with rope. Then, he stabbed them repeatedly before casually strolling back into the woods. A few hours later, Zodiac himself called the police. "I want to report a murder." No, a double murder. Brian survived. Cecilia did not. The fear spread like wildfire. Now, Zodiac had evolved. No longer just shooting his victims. Now, he was up close, personal. He wanted to feel it. But the worst was yet to come. Do you believe the Zodiac Killer had a deeper reason for these attacks? Or was he simply a man driven by madness? Would you like to see more investigations into unsolved mysteries like this? Let us know in the comments below.